Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Season 3 of the World with Nate podcast. I'm your host, Nate Allison, and this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Cool Fit. If you're ready to make your health a priority this year, contact Nick Cool today. Make sure you let Nick know that I sent you, and thanks, Nick, for always believing me and pushing me through your current course. I'm the fittest I've ever been, and it's all attributed to what I'm doing in your program. Without further ado, our guest today is Christi. Christi, you are an amazing ninja, a mom. I see you in the gym kicking butt all the time. And we want to chat a little bit about your early life and growing up. You grew up in Alaska, correct? Yep. What was that like?
Gosh,
being an Iowa kid, I know nothing about Alaska, so fill me in.
The mountains are amazing. I grew up on a gold mine in Alaska. So my dad was a crane operator for the pipeline. And then one of his hobbies was to mine for gold, as everybody kind of went up there in the 70s and 80s for.
Heck yeah.
So that's how I grew up, climbing cranes and working loaders and dozers and backhoes and everything.
Gold mine.
Yep.
And like actively you guys would find gold in this?
Yeah, and then he would buy more equipment and find more gold. It was a vicious cycle.
Yeah. So when you guys are doing this, growing up, did you live in town or was this forest?
So I lived about 30 minutes outside of Fairbanks. It was called Fox.
Okay.
It's a very small community. I mean, maybe a couple hundred, if even that. Growing up, I would say probably 50.
Fairbanks is a big city in Alaska, correct?
Around 100,000,
okay.
About the size of Waterloo.
Yeah, so huge compared to the rest of Alaska, right? Isn't that one of the bigger cities?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
One of the well-known ones.
So you grew up on this gold mine. A lot of kids in the community, or you have siblings? What
Not
was
out
that
there.
like?
So there's 5 of us in the family.
Okay.
And like I said, we lived 20 minutes out of town. Alaska's always been about a decade behind the States.
Okay, that's cool to hear.
Yeah, so when everybody had normal carrying cell phones down here, we had cell phones that were like screwed into your car, or you carried in a big box. Or,
okay.
It's just a different world. So living 20 minutes out of town was a big deal back then because you're pretty much out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I had my siblings growing up and then the few people that would come and go in and out of the community, but not very many kids.
So when we're talking about living in a place like that in Alaska, are we still talking about having like electricity, running water, and all those things? So, I'm not trying to, just don't know.
Funny you asked that. So I grew up originally in a dry cabin. We had
explain that because I have no idea.
So a dry cabin means no water and limited electricity, if even that's like candles, things like that. Like,
for real?
Total heck, yeah.
Well, I mean, if we could go back to some of that.
We had a little metal bathtub in the middle of the living room. You just kind of fill it with water, and you hauled your own water. Across from where I grew up was the Fox Springs, and so you would take buckets down there and fill it up. Totally heck.
It's
really
just a lot different than what we're accustomed to now.
Yeah. And then like the older I got, my dad expanded the house. Like I said, there was 5 kids, so dad expanded the house, and as kids came along, we just got a little bit more space. It was never more than probably, maybe 1,200 square feet, and all 7 of us in there. So it was very tight living.
Cramped quarters.
Yeah, 3 of us in one bedroom, and it was like a walk-through hallway bedroom, and then the older boys got a corner bedroom, and then my mom and dad got the other bedroom. So it was very small.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it was different.
Definitely different than today, or here in Iowa, what we're accustomed to, because now you are a mother with your own kids.
Yep.
Now, what was the high school like through that? Is it a normal grade school? You go to school every day? School bus comes picks you up?
I went to private school.
Okay.
It was I'm trying to choose my words carefully. I would say a cultish type of environment. I grew up very Baptist. I love God, so don't take that anyway negatively. Yeah. People think universe, whatever you want to believe in. But I grew up in a very cultish environment, so it was like a one-room schoolhouse kind of thing. From kindergarten to 12th grade, we're all shoved into the same building. And I think each grade, so it was like kindergarten was separate, first and second together, doubled all the way up, and then all of the high school was in one room. So yeah, it was a different environment. There was less than 100 of us kids, and we all grew up, still friends today. So I like some of the kids that were in 11th and 12th grade, and I was in kindergarten, I still keep in contact with them. But I never saw the age difference because of the way we grew up. It was just normal. Those were kids in your class or kids in your school. You had lunch together with them, whatever.
Yeah. But that's really interesting to hear.
Different.
Yeah. So with that magnitude of age differences, what are some things that would go on in school? I mean, what sort of things are you learning out there? And it was a Baptist school, so was stuff focused on?
It was very much focused around their control and the way that they wanted things run.
Okay.
Which obviously will come into play later, explaining my story and why things turned out the way they did. But the pastor had full control of everything. He was, he explained himself as the dictator of things, right? So like you
almost godlike.
Yes, very much. And I don't believe all Baptists are that way.
Right.
I like to think positively.
This was just your experience.
It was just my experience. And in the middle of nowhere, it's easy to do that. I mean, like the FLDS thing and different, you know what I mean? So there's different communities. So if you had to think of it in terms maybe related to like an FLDS community or Mormon community, that's essentially what we had up there. And school was interesting. You get the snot beat out of you. If all the parents had to sign a contract saying that we were allowed to spank your kids for whatever reason. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Like physical abuse within school was okay.
Yeah. So first grade, I literally got spanked every day of first grade. I might have been stubborn, but hey, it's carried me far in life. It really has.
Oh yeah.
Fifth grade, I got locked into a room for 2 weeks in the dark.
Holy smokes, that's
so
torture.
Every day I had to take my desk from the classroom and carry it down to this like detention room. It was an isolation room. And the only thing in there was a window facing the street. So I can still picture the light across the streets, like just sitting there in the dark. And they would bring in homework and like double your homework every time you didn't do it. And I sat there for 2 weeks and I was just like, you're not going to break me. It's not going to work. It's whatever. So she came in and she was like, you don't deserve the light anymore. And so then she turned the light out. You can sit in the dark. And so I would just stare at the light. And in Alaska in the winter, it's dark.
Dark.
Yeah. So we get like 3 hours a day. So it comes up at like noon, goes back down by 3. You're already out of school and it's dark again. So all you know is darkness, right? Maybe recess. Man. Yeah. So yeah, that was the time frame. And I just sat there staring at this street light and just like all this stuff running through my head. I don't know if it's kosher to say, but I'm going to anyways. And then you can cut it out if you need to. But I drew, growing up in that environment, if you were a rebel, it wasn't okay.
What do you mean a rebel?
Rebel going against anything they tell you not to do. So if you're a female that has your own thinking, if you're a kid that stands up to an adult, if you're any thinking outside of the box of what they wanted to put you in, you were a rebel. So in history, we had been learning about the rebels, which some people take it negatively, and I don't mean it anyway negatively. I had a totally different spin on things.
Okay, a lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had gotten to a point that I wasn't going to continue bending over because for the first couple of days, I sat there trying to be this good kid.
Do everything right?
Yeah, writing until your hands were cramped. They would give you sentences, which were paragraphs and Bible verses, and I won't do this and I won't do that, and you'll be writing for days. And they would give you 50 and then 100 and then 150 and just keep doubling it if you didn't finish them, plus all the homework that you had. It was quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, and thinking back, I was 10 years old?
A child.
Yeah,
a small, impressionable, young child.
And so I finally, after a couple of days, I got to the point that I was like, man, this isn't going to happen. There's no way I will ever get this done, right? So I took the back of my notebook and I drew the rebel flag, the Confederate flag, and I taped
just as a sign of protest.
To me. Yeah, it was a sign to me. It was like, you know what? Fine, then I'll be the rebel, and you're not ever going to break me.
That makes my skin could just tingle.
I still have that to this day. So.
Not meaning anything race revolved or anything.
No, it was very much my, looking back, it was the beginning to me, like,
pushback.
I'm going to be here, and you're not going to push me into this circle.
Oh, yeah.
It'll never happen. So the teacher came
Where did you get that? Did you ever feel like an island by yourself when all of your family is doing these things as well, and then you're trying to stand up to this?
I really think it came from my dad. My dad, was opposite of everything I grew up, if that makes sense. He didn't go to church with us. He didn't have anything to do with the Baptist community. He was very much like, be your own person, right? But he was also a drunk. So 50-50, how do you go with that? You know what I mean? But he constantly always told me, like, don't conform. You're better than them, kid. Don't whatever. And yeah, so after church on Wednesday nights, I would sit in the garage with him, and he'd be eating chips, and I might have been his favorite, but we're not going to go there.
We don't want to make haters out there between your siblings.
But we would sit in the garage, and he would just talk to me all the time, just like, dude, don't fall into it. Don't let him take you. Don't let this happen. Don't whatever. So I have like a deep regard for my dad, but I think that's honestly what pushed me through. So when I drew this flag, I taped it to the inside of my desk, and the teacher came back in the room, flipped open my desk to look at the homework, and saw it there, and I was like,
oh, Lord.
I'm caught. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got my butt beat for it. but she didn't take it away. And I don't know why she didn't take it away, but she didn't. And so then the next couple weeks, I wouldn't open so long story, sorry.
That's okay.
So anyways, she didn't take it away, and I was grateful for that. And after I got my butt whooped, she left, and I'm still sitting there in the dark, and the principal came in. This is about 2 weeks in. And he was like, Christy, what's it going to take? And I was like, here's the thing, man. You guys have given me an amount I'll never hit. Like, there's no way, even if I'm writing day and night and not sleeping, I'm never going to get to this stack of papers. Like, I'm done. So I guess I'm just going to sleep here and take a nap. And I'm 10 years old. Like,
as a child.
Yeah. And it's like the guts that I had at 10
was
ballsy.
To stand up to an adult, someone with that.
The principal of the school, like, you just don't do that. And he was like, you know what, you're right. And he's like, there's no way. And he goes, I'm going to let you go back to class, but you have to make me a promise that you'll do what you're supposed to do from now on. And I was like, I promise I'll do my homework. And so he was like, all right. So he went and told the teachers, and they were ticked. There was 2 teachers in that class, and I have made amends with one of them. I did contact her not too long ago, and
very big of you.
We communicate now.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, okay, if you think about it, they were also stuck in that mindset of they thought what they were doing was right too. Yeah. And so when you come about it from that point of view, it's like we were all doing what we thought was supposed to happen. How do you not forgive them? You know what I mean?
It's very, very big and strong of you to say those things. It's hard.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It's heavy to see what people come out of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
And growing up in that situation, when did you know, hey, this is not right? How early on?
I'm not going to lie, I don't know. Because there was, like I said, I always had this inner conflict of like, I don't fit in here. This isn't okay. This is
You always felt that way?
Yeah. And I don't know, like I said, I think it came from my dad. But I don't know at what point that I was like, this isn't okay. Because even after, so my mom kind of was ejected from the church.
Okay.
Because she got divorced. My dad left. Like she didn't have a choice.
Now, you had said he had a problem with alcohol.
He did very much so. He was abusive. I mean, there was times I saw my mom with black eyes. I saw her get the crap beat out of her, and the church did nothing to ever help her. So, coming from like that point of view, screw the church, because like let them have what they want, like whatever. But everybody had left. The younger two, my younger brother and sister, had already gone to public school, and I was in like the 9th grade. And this probably answers your question. It's probably the point I hit. I was like trying so hard to be the good kid because I was always seen as the bad kid, right? When you have your own opinion, you're like the troublemaker.
Labeled.
Yeah, very much so. Which is kind of why I like troubled kids now, because it's like there's a story behind it. Find out what it is. You know?
Absolutely.
That's my favorite people are the troublemakers. But yeah, so in 9th grade, the pastor's daughter, her boyfriend, and then a buddy of mine and me all went to the movies. And you sign a contract saying you won't do worldly things and you can't go to the movies. That was the first time.
Signed contracts.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're what, 14 and they set you down? And
yep.
For real.
And if you go against you couldn't date, you couldn't wear pants, you couldn't go to the movies, you couldn't be seen anywhere worldly, you couldn't, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. The list goes on. And it was like a 2-page contract, and you had to read the whole thing and sign your name to it that I agree. You also agreed to getting spanked. Yep.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, at 14 years old. Can you imagine spanking a 14-year-old?
No.
That's crossing a fine line. So, it was very, very different. So we went to the movies, and obviously I was very vocal because I'm whatever.
You didn't care.
I did not care.
Maybe trying to start some fires?
Possibly, but I don't think I was purposely trying to piss him off, but at the same time it was like, you've lost your grip.
Yep.
And then I took the pastor's daughter, so then I was like really a rebel because I pulled her into that.
Poking the bear.
Yeah. So they pulled us into the pastor's office and were like, hey, did you guys go? And we're like, heck yeah, we went. It was Shrek, for the love of God.
Yeah.
Like Shrek. That was such a horrible movie,
Not some racy, rated R movie. It was a child's
Shrek.
movie.
Yeah. It was a Disney movie. I think it's Disney, sorry, whatever it is.
Yeah, Shrek. We all know Shrek.
But anyways, so they pulled us in the office and said, you have to apologize. And like the week the other 3 were, they all apologized. And I stood there and he was like, you have to say sorry. And I was like, here's the thing. I did it on purpose. And I'm not going to say sorry for something I'm not sorry for. And I was like, if it was something that I did, not knowing what I did, I would have said sorry. But I'm not going to say sorry. And he was like, you realize not saying sorry gets you kicked out of the school. And I was like, then so be it. Here I come, public school. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not doing it. And I had my mom begging me, you're the last one in the Christian school, you know, whatever. I had the pastor's son begging me, literally crying. like, oh, you have to say sorry, whatever. And I'm like, but I'm not sorry.
Because to them, it wasn't a big deal. That maybe
Yeah.
giving up that piece, but to you, it was your world.
To me, it was everything.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And so there's been a couple of points like that different things happened that I like stood my moral ground
Hell
in my
yeah.
mind, that it was just like, nope, I'm not
Standing
sorry.
tall.
So that's when I started in public school.
And that was, when did you say 14?
Yeah, I was 14. So the next year, I think it was the end of my 9th grade year.
Now, what was your experience going from this sheltered to, whoo, the wheels came off or what?
So I went into one school, the bigger school in town, for a week. And looking back now, I was like, wow, I was such a chicken. You know what I mean? But like 1,500 kids.
Oh, wow, from your 10
Yeah.
people that were in your class.
Yeah. To all these kids. And I was just like, whew, this is not happening. Nope. So then I went to Hutchinson High School. And it was a kind of like a trade school.
Okay.
I don't know what around. I know there's one here, but I can't think of the name of it. But it would be like, I mean, we had 100 kids in our senior class. So 9th through 12th, there was 100 in each level.
Okay.
Way better. Way better. But I went from being like this troublemaking kid to going into public school. The principal loved me. He was like, "You're like the best kid here." Like,
You're like,
listen to
I was
everything."
getting beat at my
I
other
know.
school. Shit.
I was like, dude, they hated
Yeah.
me. Like, I could walk the halls during classes, like running errands for teachers and stuff, and never got in trouble. They never second guessed me. They trusted me.
Yeah.
And it's like all these. My mouth is so dry.
That's all right. Take
All
your
of
time.
these years, like, you were the bad kid. Nobody trusted you. You had to second guess everything. You had to, like, am I a good person? Am I this? Am I that? And then you go into this different environment and they're like, holy cow, you're amazing. You're this, you're that, you're whatever. Like, you have so much potential. You have whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is it just threw my mind into a different loop, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
They were, I don't know, angels to me.
If you are told for your whole life that you're not good enough, the second that you have people speaking into you, I'm thankful that you had that at that point in your life.
Yeah.
Because who
And I'm
knows
still
where it could
friends.
have went.
Right. I'm still friends with a handful of those teachers that, like, a shout out to Mackenzie. He, in history class, like, the education that I had in the private school, I will say it was par none. Like, I don't regret any of that.
Yeah.
I came out knowing, like, I could literally list all the presidents that have ever been.
Heck yeah.
Right?
That's a hell of an accomplishment at any
just
point.
like all of the weird things that we were taught that, like, drilled into your brain. But then there was other stuff that you weren't taught. So, like, going into Mackenzie's class, he was the best history teacher I've ever had, 11th grade. And he made this smart aleck comment, and he goes, if anybody can list all the presidents of the United States, he's like, you can have 100 on this exam, and you can go to the coffee shop, and I'll give you a pass to leave. And I was like, I can't. He turns and looks at me, and he goes, Hannah, I swear. Because that was what they nicknamed me. It was more than one Christi, so they called me Hannah.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, nope, I will. And I started listening to them all, and he goes, son of a gun.
Writing it out for you.
He's like, enjoy the coffee shop.
Absolutely.
And I got to walk out of school and get 100 on a test just for, like, the random things that I knew. But, like, very intelligent, but just the life skills that I didn't have.
And individuality. I can't
that.
imagine any creativity, anything coming out of such a rigid structure like that as a child when you're supposed to be growing, exploring, developing.
Yeah, very much. The first time I wore pants, I was 12 years old.
Because you were not allowed?
Not allowed to. Nope.
Wow.
So, I mean, I was a monkey, too. Like, with Ninja.
Yeah,
but, like,
we haven't got there yet.
Sorry, climbing trees, and we had a pole barn out back. I could climb to the top at 9 years old. I climbed the crane. I've got pictures of me sitting on top of a crane that's 30, 40 feet in the air.
Just not scared?
No. No, and, like, no fear back then. Now it's different. But anyways, like, no fear, and just, like, the stuff that we did. I had an amazing childhood in that way. Like, the opportunities and the, like, operating equipment. I'm a natural at operating equipment because I started at such a young kid.
Which is cool to hear.
Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah, so different.
Yeah, it's just random. They're like, okay, you know how to operate equipment.
Heavy
like,
equipment
really
operator and a ninja and yeah.
But it's just, I had a different life.
Yeah, way different as opposed to what we're used to now, especially when you look into that. Religion's a sticky subject because, like you said, if you look at it from a different way, that's all that they knew.
Yeah.
You know, maybe. But there is right and there is wrong.
100%.
And
I'm very much a proponent
stickler
of
on
it.
that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And that's why I appreciate you coming on and talking about that because it is hard to do the right thing sometimes. And sometimes you lose friends, and sometimes you can lose the life that you had. But maybe that wasn't what it was about, right?
Yeah, and that's something, it's funny because, funny you say that, as people, when you stand up to something like that, I lost everybody. I lost all of my friends because, I wouldn't say all of them, I lost a good majority of my friends that stayed in that life because that's what they believed, and you can't talk to them anymore. And it's like, that's not fair because you don't understand, like, what you're in, and you don't understand there's a whole world out there. And it's not even, like, the worldly side of it, it's just life in general.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many dreams that you don't get to chase. There's so much out there. So
that you don't get to experience.
Yeah, it's sad to me because it's your daily life of like going to church and then going home and kids, and that's it.
And that wasn't for you.
Nope.
You knew that a long time early on in that start, right?
Yeah, I did. I knew it a long time ago, but then there's, like I said, I always had that internal struggle of like, you have to be good. You have to, and that was constant saying that was
box,
always thrown.
These are the things that you're supposed to do at this age. These are
Yeah, and just like be good. Be good was something that was always said, and it's the obey, like just obey, just listen, just obey, right? And when people would walk by, just make sure you're being good. I'm like, all right, I'm being good. Like I'm trying really hard, you know? And so I don't want to jump into the next subject, but that was very much ingrained into my brain. So no matter how much I tried to get away from it in some ways, the shame and guilt you feel of like I left everybody behind or wearing pants.
Oh, wow.
Just like it's
inside.
So different. Yeah.
How?
Yeah, because then you're not, I don't know how to explain that.
I know it's a very deep question.
It is. And maybe it comes from like being raised that way, and that's literally what's ingrained in your brain, and you don't know anything else, which gives me a full point of view of a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's the only way I can explain it is like it's ingrained in you and you're stuck there and you're not following God or you're not following what you're supposed to be doing just by pushing against that. And so even when you do, you like look back later, so maybe later in the day or something, and you're like, oh, should I have done that? Should I have done that?
Still
you know
questioning yourself
Very
and the
much.
decisions you always are making.
Yep, very much.
That's a constant internal struggle.
It is, 100%.
That creates a lot of anxiety.
That's an easy way to put it.
Yeah.
But it's really good. Like something I explained to you is having other people there, right?
Absolutely.
So you build your community or you build your small group or whatever you want it to be. And then you're like, hey, bounce this back to me. Give me your point of view here. Did I come across this way? Or am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be like, oh, you did the right thing. But they can always, like, with a couple different people and a couple different brains, they can always spin it back to you like, hey, probably shouldn't have come across that way because this person probably took it negatively, but what you were meaning was different, so it's okay.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
having those other people to bounce things off of, so the only lens that you're looking through isn't just your own.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because any person, you can get really stuck in this closed-mindedness, and yeah, the strength-based lens will really help a lot better.
Absolutely. So. And having other people's experiences.
Very
we only
much.
know what we can know.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Wow. So, kids, you graduate high school, you started having kids early, right?
Yeah.
Explain that
So
situation, how that developed to me.
I graduated in May and got married in August. Good
Was
times.
that pretty typical for people in your community?
Very much.
Right after high school, you're getting married and starting your family, settling down.
Getting married and having babies and being locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's how it was looked at, right? Like
very much. I mean, so the whole goal of women was to have kids and then to continue the work of God through your children. And I say that snarkily, not that I don't believe in God, which I've already mentioned. I say it snarkily just because of the control tactic that's put on it.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted that clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yes.
And it's not saying that there's not room to have God in your everyday life and to live those principles. You just can't control other humans. That's not our responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's very much
what you saw after being out of that.
Different, yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had my daughter probably, a year after graduating? Not even a year after graduating. I got pregnant right out of high school, got married in August. And then Emily was born in February.
And that's your oldest?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the beginning. I only have 3, thankfully. But yeah, so then I had my second one a year later. And so they were back to back, and I was swamped with kids and that life.
And everybody can relate to that busyness, right? Anybody that's got kids know how busy that is.
But looking back, it's interesting seeing some of the pictures because I got very much judged in the hospital, especially having my daughter. One, I look young for my age, which is not fair. It's a horrible curse.
Says you.
It's a horrible curse.
The guy that's got 1,000 wrinkles in his forehead is like, well.
Do you see my scowling wrinkles?
Right.
They never go away. And then they tan in the summertime. So I got judged in the hospital having my daughter. They thought I was 12. Yeah. If you saw the pictures, you would see the same thing.
You just look super young.
Bad, yeah. And so, like, looking back, I was like, oh my gosh, I would have had the same thought, like, what are you into? Are you okay? Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I looked like I was 12 years old. And then having the next one a year later, I still didn't look
13.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't look much older. And my son was struggling to breathe when he was born. And I could hear him just like, and just like gasping for breath all night the first night. And I told them, I was like, hey, and nobody takes you seriously because you look like a little kid, right? Huh. And she was like, no, you're discharged today. He's checked out fine, whatever. I saved his life. But I told her, I was like, man, I can't go until you check his breathing. And she kept fighting with me. And my mom came in to pick me up. Odd story. But anyways, my mom came in to pick me up from the hospital. And she told the nurse, she was like, dude, just like make her happy. Go check his breathing and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, we'll get out of here.
And they had already discharged us, already signed the papers, and we're ready to go. They hooked him up to breathing. He was getting 20%.
Wow.
20%. She said you wouldn't have
Shouldn't
made
have
it home.
even, been alive right then.
Yeah. And it was a 20-minute drive home. Whoa. So yeah, he wouldn't have made it home. And I was like, dude, like that hard-headedness has
saved his life.
Yeah, it's done good. And that's why I'm like, every time I see a little kid being a strong head, I'm like, dude, just let him. Because if you break it, you never know what it's going to do later in life.
Absolutely. You never know what you're going to get as that final project if we're trying to.
And it's not fair. Like, those are the people that change the world.
Hell yeah.
So
absolutely.
I still have big goals.
Absolutely. The goals are not gone. So you're young. You're married. Do you have a job at this point, or your job is stay-at-home mom?
You weren't allowed to work. I was a stay-at-home mom.
No matter what you wanted, despite your dreams, goals, aspirations in life.
Yep.
You were a stay-at-home mom.
Didn't get to go to college. Didn't get to...
Things that you wanted to do at that point in time, what were your aspirations?
I don't know, man. I loved basketball. I would have loved to do something along that. There was a bunch of different things I wanted to do. But at the same time, like I said, that internal struggle of what you're supposed to do, and you just kind of fall in line and do it. Even though, like, at different points I had stood up. Like I said, that's still internal struggle. The part that I should explain, though, like, looking back, I as the mom, right? You have no voice. You have no...
As a mom in this culture.
Yes, in this culture, sorry. Very much as a mom, you have a voice. They're the ones that listen to the kids. No,
100% true.
But yeah, you didn't have a way to stand up. You didn't have a way to say anything. And if you did, then the whole church was against you and everybody around you. Like, oh my gosh, you're doing something horrible. So I didn't have credit. I didn't have a car in my name. I drove a car. It wasn't in my name. I didn't have a house in my name. I didn't have $1 to my name. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. And so... Fast forward a couple years, he was an abusive person. I'm just going to leave it there. Yeah. Fast forward a couple years, when he had been cheating and then left, I had nothing.
Or nowhere to start as an adult with children and responsibility.
2 kids to take care of. And his whole thing was, I want to go back to my partying life. And it's like, and I told him from the beginning, I saw my parents live like just in turmoil. And I would never do that to anybody. Your dad
with an alcohol problem.
Right.
And then that develops in the relationship that you're in.
And it was very much the same. And so then, like, the turmoil, I got something in my eyeball. The turmoil, I just never wanted to live in that. And even though it was happening, you also can't escape it. Because once you're married, you're supposed to stay in that. And, like, that's who you're married to for life. And that's... Man, it's such a different mindset. It's hard to even explain because people that didn't live it don't understand it.
They don't understand maybe how you could get into
Stuck
that.
In there, yeah. Yeah, and people ask me all the time, like, with as strongly minded as you were, how did you get into that? And it's like, it was that internal struggle of be good, follow the line, do what you're supposed to do, and it would all work out. And it does, but you don't have to be good and you don't have to follow the line. You know what I mean? So... it was a very interesting situation to be in for a handful of years. But when it came down to it and he was ready to go, I told him, I was like, man, I've always told you, I would never stop you. If you're ever unhappy, walk away.
Wow.
But then, like, I always knew I wasn't enough because that was the way I was raised, right? You're not good enough. You're too much for people. It's interesting looking at it now, but I'm still the same. I'm very too much for people. And if you have a conversation with me, I go too deep where people can't have that conversation. You know what I mean? Everybody wants a superficial of like, hey, how are you today? I'm great. Nice to see you. Keep walking. And I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Like, I see something that's like
off.
You know, even just random people in the gym. I'll go up to them or I'll even message them so then I don't have to talk to them in public in front of other people and them explain like everything's just shithole right now. You know what I mean? But I'm like, are you doing okay? And like, I don't like the passive conversations.
I hate it as well.
It's so frustrating. So that's what I mean by like too much. People are like, you're too much. You're too much. I can't handle, whatever. Or they just don't want to accept the fact that they have something going on and they can't talk about it, which I've been there, you know? So that was very much how it was back then. And I was just like, go, man. I'm not going to stop you. I'll raise the kids. I'll move on with life. It's not a big deal. And I found out pretty quickly it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So he just took off. See you, dude.
He did. He disappeared for the first year. Didn't have a whole lot to do with him.
As a mother, seeing these things happen again in life.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Pretty fucked up.
Tough.
That's probably the easiest way to put it. Pardon my French, but yeah. I think I rolled with it pretty well. Looking
Absolutely.
back, I don't know how I survived. There were days that I didn't eat, but the kids did. Sorry.
It's okay, Christi. Take your time.
Yeah. That was some heavy stuff.
And you had nothing and nowhere to start.
Yeah.
Where do you begin?
Scrambling. One of the comments he made when he left, it was kind of funny now, but he left the house 3 months behind on payments. So it was
in a big hole.
Oh yeah. So I asked my dad because he was the one person that had money. And so I was like, can you help me, whatever. My dad willingly gave me the money it took to cut it up, to catch it up. That was horrible language right there. But yeah, I caught it up. And I was just like, all right, it is what it is. We're going to fight. And I say it is what it is. And I say that in a different way than people that live passively. It is what it is, but then what are you going to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I was just like, all right, here we go, So I started asking different people, like, hey, who do you have watch your kids? I had my mom watch them for a couple of days. That wasn't working out that great. And I found an angel, and I'll always refer to that lady as that.
Maybe she was put in your life.
Yeah, 100%.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So anyways.
And she was watching the kids?
Yeah. The best Puerto Rican lady I've ever met.
In Alaska.
She was the sweetest. Oh, yeah, she was the sweetest. Good person. But the first, she didn't know me very well, so at first, it was, okay, it's $900 a month per kid. Yeah. Where are you going to come up? That was, the mortgage was, I think, $1,200 to $1,400. So you come up with that and another $1,800 just for the kids, and what do you eat?
Yeah. Where the hell does all that money come from when you start at zero?
Yeah, I had nothing, and I was just like, man, this is going to be a living hell. It's never going to work. The first negative things that come to your mind, right? She helped me sign up for food stamps. I grew up, my dad was always pay for cash for everything, never use government help, just the very Republican mindset, which I do agree with, but it's there when you need it.
People need help sometimes.
Right. And it gives me a heart for people with the crap that I've been through. But
absolutely.
It was the only thing I had. So $900 a month for food was where I started, and that was everything. But yeah, so she realized what was going on. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to take the kids in. I worked a construction job. I did. I was like, whatever it takes, I'll do what it takes. I did not care. The environment in the construction world.
In Alaska, I cannot imagine what you were hearing every day.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And my sheltered mind was open that quick. Yeah, it was crazy. It was way crazy, but it definitely woke me up. But it was good. It was good.
Construction work.
Yeah.
That's just something you knew you could do, and you took a shot?
They had, so what it started out as is they were hiring for people to clean the buildings as they go. So as they're doing different phases, you know, so they build a certain part and then all that stuff's got to be, cleaned out.
Yep.
And so I would go through and clean out all the scraps. And then they do the next phase and then you go out clean the next one. So there's like a bunch of different setups and we're going through each building every day. So 12 hours a day, just cleaning crap. And I was a hard worker. I'm good at it.
Hell yeah.
Like that's what I was taught growing up is I did everything with my dad.
Bust your ass.
Yeah. I've always been that way, just like bust ass and get through, right?
Oh yeah.
So that was my first main job was that, but 12 hours a day. And after the first week, the daycare lady came to me and she was like, man, I just want you to know if DHS shows up, you're going to be in trouble. And I was like, had no idea.
How so?
And she goes, you can only leave your kids at daycare for 10 hours a day.
Oh.
It was legality, which is totally makes sense now.
And it's a good rule to have.
Yeah, very much so, because then kids aren't being abandoned at a daycare or
Yep.
not being taken care of or whatever.
But in your situation.
Oh, I was broken because I was like, that's the only shift they had.
And you probably needed every hour of the income.
I did. I was begging for like weekends. I was begging, like one of my boss, he was amazing. But I was like, can I work through lunch? I need the extra hour. I wouldn't eat.
Wow.
I'd just work through it. I was like, man, I got to have the money, you know? But
being in that constant struggle and feel like you're constantly in the fight or flight and never relaxed. Looking back on that, I'm sure that you wonder how you did it.
100%. I question all the time. I'm like, I'm surprised we made it through. But at the same time, knowing how hard-headed I am.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I struggled, but it wasn't without different people that showed up.
A hand up.
Yeah.
Not a hand out.
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You work hard for everything you get and you fight for it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And this lady was that. She was just like, man. And so she told me, and that's why I call her an angel, because she told me, she was like, if they show up, technically they're in daycare. And she's like, I have to tell them, like, what can we do here? And I started crying. I was like, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. And I went home and I was just like, fuck.
What am I going to do?
Yeah. Because I couldn't lose my job.
Yeah.
So I just sat there and I was just like, all right, I'll figure it out. So I started looking for other jobs. And the next morning I took them back because I'm still going to go back to work and see what the hell happens until they catch me. We're going to do what we got to do. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, I got to eat.
Yeah.
So
you have mouths to feed.
Right.
Too.
100%. And probably that more than me because I went without eating plenty of times. But I took them back to her the next day and she was like, hey, shoot real with me. What's going on? And I was like, man, I can't lose my job. Like, I got to have it. And she goes, so here's the thing. She goes, instead of waking them up at 4 o'clock every morning, I started at 6 and it took me half an hour to get there. She said, wake them up at 5, drop them off in their jammies. I'll do their hair. I'll dress them. I'll feed them.
Doesn't count as time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she took them in as like her own kids.
Yeah. Wow. Whew. That's a lot.
So yeah, Mikey.
Changed your entire start.
Yeah. So Mikey remembers, he told me one day, he was probably 11 or 12, and he said, you know what I remember? He said, one of the few memories I have is, he goes, a dark stairwell with a light at the top and being in my car seat and you carrying me up. That kid was 2 years old. And he remembers that. But yeah, there was times that I just unbuckled their car seat. You know those freaking heavy-ass car seats? With it. Mike was not tiny. That kid was
now,
a
and at this
football
point, you don't have the guns that you have now, or do ninja you.
I struggled all the way up the stairs with that 40-pound car seat and just set him inside and he'd be sleeping. And then I'd go back down and get the other one and carry him up. But yeah, so she dressed him. She ended up giving me clothes all the time. At the end of the week, she would give me food out of the fridge. Wow. Yeah. An
angel.
Very much.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, that's where I got on my feet.
Stood on your own.
100%. Yeah. And slowly, like, I've always been this way. Well, since then, and like any dime that doesn't have to be spent, I don't spend it. You know what I mean? So like, if I take the kids out for ice cream, to this day, I'll still be like, most of the time, I probably won't get any because that means you can get some next time. You know what I mean? Like, that's just my mindset all the time. Is always save, always make sure that you're never back in that place. Because I vowed at that point, like, I will never, ever be back here. And I have a cool story. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So people don't believe in angels, but I 100%
I absolutely do.
One of those nights, I was making dinner, and Emmy comes in. She was probably 4, and she's like, Mom, it's really cold in here. And I don't know if it's because I was at the stove or, moving all the time that I was just like, I didn't feel it at that point. And so I was like, what do you mean it's cold in here? And I looked over at the temperature gauge, and it said 60 degrees, and I was like, oh, shit, dead of winter. And I was like, that means we're out of fuel.
Ugh.
I had $70, dude. $70, and that was my food for the week that was left. At this point, I had already made money, so once you were making money, you obviously couldn't get help for anything. Like, so I didn't have any
just
food
had to
stamps.
make it.
Yeah. So I was back to that point that I was like scrounging, but I was like scrounging but making it, right? So $70 was for food. It wasn't going to go to anything else. And I looked at her and then just like this panic moment of like, okay, $70.
Your daughter.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, go put a jacket on. We'll go to the gas station and get gas.
You don't fucking give up.
Dude.
Dang.
the only way to make it.
Hell yeah.
So I went with the 5-gallon jug I had and filled it up, put it in the tank, and I was like, we're just going to have to sleep together tonight. We'll figure it out the next morning. So we went to bed that night. I will tell you, 5 gallons does not do shit for a boiler, okay? Just want you to know that. But in my mind,
it was going to work. That's what you could do, right?
It was going to work out, yeah. But I had already played the whole thing in my head. So, all right, if I have to use all 70 in the next couple of days to just get a few gallons and keep it on a low temp and keep them dressed extra warm, like, so they're not cold, I'll just go without eating. Like, I had already played it out in my head. And so we went to bed, all sleeping in my bed that night. It was so much fun.
Yeah, you look back
in
at
the head
it
and all. But yeah, I don't regret any of it, man. I just don't. It definitely built me to who I am.
There's some strength in that. So hopefully the people that are listening and maybe currently in these situations or going through the suck that life can be can see that. And there's an end, right?
Oh, there definitely is.
Hell yeah.
You keep fighting and there's
Keep
an end.
fighting.
Yeah. So the next morning, I was taking them to daycare, and I called the fuel company. I was trying not to say the fuel company. I called the fuel company, and the lady's like, Alaska's very big. You have to pay for the fuel right when it's delivered. They don't want to have somebody not paying for
Backlog.
it, right? Yeah. So they don't do that. Like, you pay for it when it shows up. So the stubborn person that I am, the lady calls, and she's like, it's 700 and... I now forget the cents, and I have it written somewhere. It was like $790-something down to like 10 cents, right? She knew exactly what it was, and she was like, this is what it's going to cost to do this much. And I was like, okay. And she goes, would you like to pay for that over the phone? Well, I have $70 in my bank account.
And you needed 700?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a credit card to my name. I didn't have any credit at this point. I didn't have anything. So the only thing I had was my bank card that somebody actually helped me open originally. I didn't even have that. So I have $70 in my bank. No way to pay for this fuel. And I was like, it'll work out. I'm not going to stress. It'll work out. So I told her, I was like, when you get here, I'll write a check. That's the only thing I could say, because I was like, I don't know where this is coming from. And I don't know what I'm going to do when they get there, because then I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
You know? But I was like, my kids got to have it. It's the only way to get hot water in the house. Is the only way for the house to run was on this fuel. So I was like, it'll show, I'll give you a check when you get here. And then I just hung up the phone, and I sat there and cried. And I was just like, I don't know how the fuck this is going to happen. And
wow. Back against the wall.
Dude, 100%. I was just like, shoot. So I sat there, I was crying, and my phone rings. And I pick it up, and it's the lady I just talked to on the phone. And she said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that there was a $790-something down to the cent. Dude, down to the fucking penny. In your account, that's going to cover your fuel. Yeah. To this day, I don't know where it came from. And she didn't know on the other end that I didn't have the money to pay for it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, if you don't believe in him, just believe that much you believe in him. Because there was no way for her to know that. There was no way for anybody in that building to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shoo.
So.
There are good people in the world.
There 100% are.
And sometimes they're given to you in the time you need them most.
Very much. They'll show up.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. Life's crazy.
Wow.
But it always works out.
It has.
It always works out. Regardless of the crap you're living through, regardless of the struggle. In the end, it always works out.
Hell yeah. Whew. So when does the struggle end?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah. When do things start to get easier? Take your time.
Man, that's a heavy one.
What happened after?
Does life ever get easier? No, I'm just teasing.
Right.
It does. It really does. Life got interesting. We're going to skip probably a good decade.
Okay. Time in Alaska?
Yeah. I left Alaska in, goodness, it's been probably 5 years.
Was that hard?
Oh, it was very hard. It was very hard. But I was in another relationship that I'm friends with to this day. I have a son from him. And I love him to pieces in one way and another, not so much. So we're just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
We're great friends. We get along well for the little dude. He raised the other two from, 5, 6 years old. So no hard feelings there. I think broken people hurt people, if that makes sense. So if I could put it in good terms, I would say another relationship that built me, but very much, choosing my words carefully, controlling is the only thing I can think of. I went back into the same thing. It wasn't abusive physically, but mentally and controlling in a way. He understands it, so I don't feel like he'll take that negatively.
Yeah.
But both of us weren't in a good place. Does that make sense? We'll put it there. I was not mentally strong and very stubborn, and he also was very stubborn. But yeah, I got to a place that I was just like, okay, I've had enough. I can't do it anymore. I was the one who left this one, but it was because it got to an impasse. You know, I can't live in the turmoil. I can't do the screaming. I can't do the fighting. I can't do any of that. I can't. And that's obviously all I told myself was I can't. And then I left. I went to take care of my dad.
You won't.
Right. Yes, that's a better way to say it. But I can't because it's just like, I'm better than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So I left, went to take care of my dad. I've got a lot of family in Missouri.
Okay.
That's where my family originated from, and then moved to Alaska for the pipeline. So that's where I went. I went to Missouri just to kind of get a break and get a grasp. I was 120 pounds soaking wet.
Wow, which is way different from your physique now.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I'm probably a good 140 right now. Maybe 145. I'm going to give myself 5 extra pounds, which most females don't do. When I start dropping, I'm like, I'm losing my muscle.
Hell yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, looking back at the pictures, I was a stick. You could tell I was just, like, sickly is probably the way to explain it. I was lost. I was scared. I was broken. Just a totally different person. And constantly, like, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Just not living life, if that makes sense. I did really well, though, just kind of hiding out in a way, okay? So I started working at a dental office again. I did dental for years.
Okay.
And I'm going into ninja now, so you didn't know
Heck
this,
yeah.
but this is where it started.
All right, so in Missouri?
Yeah.
The ninja?
Yeah. So I'd never touched a ninja gym. I'll start with the beginning, but we had a lunch break for an hour. And again, back to the construction, I never took lunch for that long. It takes me 5 minutes to eat as a mom, and I'm on to the next thing. Like, you shove that crap down and you move on. Savage, right? I'm a savage deep down.
It. Hell yeah.
But yeah, it only took me 5 minutes to eat, and we had a whole hour. And not talking negatively, but like when a bunch of people get together and they're bored, it doesn't take the right direction with conversation. It starts to get like, so-and-so did this, and I can't.
You weren't about it.
Yeah. I'm not into that. Like, you want to talk about
superficial shit.
Yeah. Move on.
Yep.
So there was a gym across the street. And I was like, you know what? I got an hour. I'll walk because that's what you do. Like, this is my silence. This is my solace. This is the only thing I had of quiet time because as a single mom, you never get a break, man. Middle of the night, all day long, nonstop, right? So that was like, okay, this is my heaven. I'm going to go walk for 30 minutes a day. And then I'll, eat for whatever and then change out in the other 15 minutes and you're good to go.
Make it work.
So this dude walks up to me, which I'm not a fan of most people talking to me in the gym. I'm sure you know that. Which, not to be rude, it's just very
you're
much
there
like,
to work.
This is my time. Don't bust in it, but I'm not being rude. Like, if you talk to me and you really need something, talk to me.
Yep.
Like, and you saw that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's where we met, in the gym. And I was totally respectful of your time because I'm the exact same way. I'm there to freaking work. I've got X amount of time. I've got X I need to do. So I was so apprehensive about initially coming up to you because I know that stuff. But thankfully, we took that. And
even when you said something, I was like, did he say something to me? My music is so loud.
You're on a mission.
Oh, yeah. And it's loud music and just busting through, right? So that's how it was at this place. But, this is the first time I'd ever been in a gym. I'd never done workouts before. I'd never done anything. And this dude comes up to me and he was like, hey, what do you think about strength training? Like, you're in here all the time walking. What do you think about strength training? I told him no for 2 straight weeks. No, man, leave me alone. No. Very friendly, super down-to-earth guy. But just kept asking. And the consistency is what changed my mind.
Yeah.
So one of the days he comes up to me, I turned to him and I was like, Adam, I said, you have to leave me alone. Yes. And he was very kind about it. He wasn't being a jerk or anything, but he was just like, man, I see something in you and you got to take it somewhere. And to this day, that's how I see it. But back then I didn't. But if he hadn't seen something in me, I would never be where I am.
That's a strong sentiment.
Yeah. It's like another angel that was like brought to you like, hey, look past, you know?
Hell yeah.
So I told him, I was like, okay, I will make you a deal. It's like, you have 1 week to teach me weights. And if I don't like it by the end of the week, you have to promise to shut up and leave me alone and let me walk every day because this is where I'm happy.
Hell yeah.
And like, this was my 30 minutes of just like quiet time in a day, you know? And it only took 1 week and I was screwed. I was into it.
Hell yeah.
I was like, dude, this is good.
You loved it.
Yeah. And it's just like building up. How do I explain that? At the beginning, it wasn't as deep as it is now. But to me, it was like, okay, I'm stronger than I realized. And then in the first 3 months, people would come into the gym and like make comments of like, holy crap. And I'm naturally built that way.
Athletic.
Yes. Like some women are like, oh, I don't want to get muscles. Just because your genes, you may not be that way.
Right.
And so then I also get judged that I'm like trying to be that way and I'm not. I'm just naturally athletic. So anyways, it only took me 3 months and like my back was starting to get ripped. My arms were getting ripped and it was like 30 minutes a day, which really shouldn't do a whole lot for you. But it's that consistency.
You responded very well to the training. Yeah.
It was just like, that's the way my body worked and it worked out. So in 3 months, he was like, you're getting bored in here. We have to find something for you to do because just like the ADD, and they would tease me. It's not really ADD.
Squirrel!
Yes, literally. Yes. So he's like, we have to do something, like give you a goal. I'd never watched American Ninja Warrior, ever. And I didn't grow up on TV. Like I said, I grew up very secluded. That was all worldly.
But you're climbing cranes and you're...
Yes. So but I just didn't see any of news. I didn't watch any of that. And so to this day, I hate screens. I hate them. And you're stuck to it all the time. Like me, not you. But it's like constant blowing up. But I hated them. And so I'd never watched the show. And so he mentioned that, mud runs, and I think it was like Spartan races or something. And he's like, what do you think of doing something like this? And I was like, I don't care. Pick a goal and I'll make it.
That was your initial?
100%.
Whatever.
Yeah. I was like, I don't care. You make a goal, I'll hit it. And he
That's
looks
cool
at me.
Too, though.
Yeah, he looks at me all smart aleckly and he's like, okay, Christy.
Yeah, he was going to challenge your ass.
Yeah. So he was like, in that same weekend, I went to visit my uncle in Kansas City. And he was like, man, have you ever thought about doing American Ninja Warrior? And I was like, did you talk to Adam? Like, do you know this dude? You know?
Oh, wow.
Like the weirdness, because both of them happened within the same week.
Coincidence.
Yeah.
Not.
And I was like, I really don't care. So I came back and I was like, okay, so funny thing happened this weekend. Let's aim for that because I feel like twice in a row, something's with that. Let's
Do
find
you
out what it
feel
is.
like in your life you have those come to you a lot? Cues or actionable steps you need to take that you feel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think, honestly, probably because as deep as I am, I see stuff like that. But it takes, like, listening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But listening to what and who?
Just
everything.
Yeah. I was like, that's what I was going to say. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open and your ears open and just see it. Like, there's so much if you see the world for what it is.
Absolutely.
Just, I mean, okay, I'm going to take a rabbit trail. But, like, if you're walking through a store and you see the sea of faces, what do you see on the faces? Do you look at the floor or do you look at the faces?
In the eyes.
I used to walk looking at the floor because I had no self-worth, because I had no vision, no view. Now I walk and watch people and I see, and I'll make comments. Like, one of my favorite things to do is to walk by people and like make comment on like their shoes or their hair or their whatever. And it throws them a loop.
Not everybody notices.
No.
Isn't
but
it wild?
It throws them a loop and then their face lights up. And I've always said that is like smile. That's something I've said since I was a little kid. Is like smile, because there's always something to smile about.
Hell yeah.
Even in the struggle, right? So if you can make somebody else smile in just a little thing that you say to them, it changes their day.
Absolutely.
But it might also change their life.
Absolutely.
So you don't know when people are struggling. You don't know when people are hurting. You don't know when, so walk through the sea of faces and then like see them for who they are. And one, it's a huge gift to yourself because giving to other people is almost very selfish because it makes you feel way good.
The ultimate bucket filler, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
It's selfish. It feels selfish to say that
Yeah.
as somebody who also loves it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love.
Yeah, it's like find that face or find those people that are hurting and help them. And so that's, I don't know why I went off on that rabbit trail, but that's my my ultimate goal.
And being that deep and passionate, sometimes that's tough as well.
Very much.
You had said that it can be inhibiting to relationships. Some people don't want to go that deep.
Yeah.
You know?
Or some people take it wrongly. I'm very, very passionate. So if you get me started on like
certain subjects, certain topics.
Yes. It's just like, especially people that are hurting. And I'm like, there's so much, right? So I get so wound up and I'm just like, I become too much, right? Not too much, but that's the way it's labeled is like, but I'm like, you have to see, you have to understand. And my way of explaining it is just like to be in your face and passionate about it, you know?
Absolutely.
And so I'm like, I just have to explain. Can you just listen for a second? So yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, very much is.
So where does the ninja thing go?
So
Because
that's
now
what-
you freaking competed on seasons 11, 12, 15, and 16.
Yeah.
Is that up to date?
I did.
Am I
yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah. So 11, season 10 was where it started.
Okay.
So I applied in season 10. They pulled me as a tester.
How did you have that confidence to freaking apply to Ninja?
So what's funny, when he threw that goal at me, he was like, I'll help you make a video. And Adam does video stuff down in Springfield. And so he helped me make a video, which was very good. Probably the best video I've ever had of myself. And I will love watching it forever. But he caught like all of the deepness of me that I even at that point didn't realize I had. So like listening back to it, it makes me cry because it's like I didn't realize what was there in that moment. You know what I mean?
Until you saw it.
Yeah.
Discovered it.
And even watching it right after he videoed it and I watched it, I was like, oh, I hate seeing myself on camera. I hate seeing myself talk. I hate my voice. You know, it's like all the nitpicky things. But then like, again, he saw something else that was like, dude, do this. So we submitted that video. I filled out their 20-page application, which may not be that long, but it was a pain. And I submitted it. Yeah. So they called me as a tester.
And what does that look like?
A tester is somebody who tests the obstacles before they run. Okay. So in case an obstacle falls or in case an obstacle doesn't work or in case you're the dummy. You're the guinea pig. Mm-hmm. So we got up there and another Adam who helps work on the show, amazing human. I got up there and there's this line of people because a lot of people apparently could apply for testing. I was chosen for testing, totally different. Okay. So people will travel and hope to get a chance to touch things.
Yeah.
Well, me, the timid person I was not that confident, but I watched a few of the videos and I was like, dude, this is going to be fun. I'm going to eat
That's
shit.
how you felt in here?
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be a blast.
I knew I was going to eat shit in front of everybody and I was okay with it. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Go out of your comfort zone. Just something that I've kind of pushed myself every time. But then I got there and there's all these people and I don't do well in crowds of people. Like 1 to 2 people, I'll have a hell of a conversation all day long. But crowds of people, I'll stand at the back and watch what's going on. And so everybody's lining up to try these obstacles. And I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. And I disappeared to the bathroom.
Took off.
Like a chicken.
Wow.
And I came back and got to the back of the line. And I'm standing at the back of the line. I was talking to one of the Bergstroms. And standing at the back of the line and just hanging out. And all of a sudden I heard my name called. And I was like, they know I'm back here. Uh-oh. Because he knew I was there. Yeah. He knew I was showing up.
You were supposed to be there.
Yeah. And he called me to the front of the line, and I'm, like, watching everybody, and they're all cheering me on. That's one of the best things about ninjas. Like, super encouraging, super fun. Nobody cares if you eat crap, and if you do, you just tell the next person to do better, right? Yeah. You teach them how to do it through your failure. And so I got up there. I'd never touched an obstacle. I'd literally been working on pull-ups in the gym, so I'd done like clapping pull-ups, I'd done abs, I'd done all sorts of stuff like that. To prepare. But I'd never touched an obstacle. Ninja stuff. No, it was bad. So you jump from a trampoline. This was a new obstacle for Pete's sake too.
When they started with you, why not? Guinea pig?
Yeah, new obstacle you couldn't have even seen before. So anyways, you jump from a trampoline, you get up there, you grab onto like a hook, and then you swing and jump to the next one, and the next one moves, and then you swing and jump to the platform. Okay, I did not know how to lashé. Didn't even know what that was. I did not grow up in gymnastics. I'm like this unathletic person that looks fit. That's it. That's all it was.
Looks fit.
So he's like, all right, Christi, let's go for this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like watching all these people like, oh, crap, this is going to be fun. And I jumped up there, and I was swinging back and forth. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't anything. And you hear so-and-so down here yelling, like, swing your hips. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I'm Baptist. You can't do that stuff. Like, this is not working for me. It was horrible.
Talk about out of your comfort zone.
Oh, yeah. It was good. So I came out, and I was like, guys, I don't even know how to dance. I don't know how to swing my hips. I don't know how to anything you were telling me to do. It didn't work out. But I know how to do pull-ups. So I was able to jump to there, and I was able to, like, throw myself to the next one, but I still missed it. And I was like, oh, crap. Psh, just hit the water.
Right in.
But it was fun. That was the very start of it. And I got to try a few other things that were fun, and then you watch other people eat it, so it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, that was the beginning. So it was 2010. Season 10 was the first one that I had any connection with. And then the next year, made another video, and this one was, like, a homemade ghetto-ness special video made by me. and they were like, all right, come on out, let's go. So season 11 was amazing because I got to go out to Tacoma, and this, like, you're paying for yourself to get out there. I had a couple people actually help me financially get out there, and I was able to take my kids out there, which was huge.
Super awesome.
Yeah. So they sat on the sideline, and Seattle's just a quick hop from Alaska. Quick hop.
Yeah.
But anyways, so some family came down.
Very cool.
To watch, and some friends, and I had a big crowd and a big sign. One of the back home companies.
And your brand or your theme, you're the Alaskan Ninja Mom.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
AK Ninja Mom.
AK Ninja Mom.
That came from my kids, because I was like, what do you say for a name? When they asked what my name was, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And my kids started
That's
calling
your
me
moniker?
That. So I was like, there you
Hell
go.
Yeah. Hell
it's
yeah.
sticking.
It's cool that they got to be a part of that and create with you this new journey.
They loved it.
Hell yeah.
But even then, so like my season 11, I landed in the top 4. I beat out Megan Martin, which was a huge ordeal.
Okay.
But even in their interview, like, I still wasn't mentally prepared. And I did tell you that coming in here. Like, I have never talked to producers. I have never talked to anybody about my story. But I finally got to the point that I was like, you know what? As much hurt as there is in the world, like, somebody has to see that there is good too.
Hell yeah.
Like, through the struggle, there's always good, right? Just fight. And so on set that year, before I went up there, I was bawling like a baby behind the scenes.
Just out of what, like nerves?
No, they tried to interview me.
Oh.
And like, what's the thing that means the most to you in the world?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, looking at
and the type of person you are, you're not going to say, well, I love my kids. You're just thinking about all this stuff.
There was so much. And so my mind was going wild, but then at the same time, it did come back to my kids, because I was like looking at this, and like just tears started rolling down my face, and I couldn't get anything out. And he was like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, no, it's okay. I was like, my kids mean the world to me, but I don't know what else to say. Like, I was so lost. And I mean, one of those producers stood up and just stood there hugging me while I sobbed like a baby. And I just told him, I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry, I'm not ready. And he was like, it's okay, Christy, it's okay. And I remember going out on that stage, like, one, I just fucked up. I did an interview, which is why they have not showed an interview of me yet, because I did an interview. And I was just like, man, I screwed it up. And I was just like, whatever, it'll be what it is, is what it is. So I remember stepping up on stage and, like, already feeling like I'd already fucked
failed.
Up. Yeah. Pardon my French, I shouldn't have
That's
said
okay.
that. But, like, I've already messed up. And when I stepped up on the stage, I was just like, well, half these obstacles, again, I hadn't done a whole lot of ninja.
Yeah.
So half these obstacles I still hadn't done. I did go up to Minneapolis to train a few times. That group was amazing. So I got to train in Minneapolis with some of them, and they taught me a few things. But even then, like, it was just winging
still very novice in the ninja world.
Right. And so I got to the front of that line, and I remember, like, looking to my kids to the side, and the same thing happened. And I was like, dude, I have to run this course now, and I'm trying not to cry. I hated crying. Like, now, vulnerability is strength, right?
Absolutely.
But at that point, I looked at them, tears started rolling down my face, and I was just like, okay, block them out. And you can see, if you slow that video down, where I go from them to this, I, like, go blank. It's just like this determination, if that's the only way I can explain it. It was just like, erase everything else, this is what you have to do. And so that's what I did. And I busted through that. And I I don't remember a whole lot of it. Watching it, I remembered it. But, like, I literally blocked out everything. And I remember at one point, I got to the balance obstacle, and the whole crowd was chanting my name. And I hated it.
For real.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, I've never been a very, like, big ego person. I've always been humble. Stay humble. That's what takes you through life. Once you get cocky, it's that far from being knocked to the bottom.
Absolutely.
So turning and looking at the whole crowd, and then, like, I had to block them out. And so I looked back down at my kids who were below me, and I looked at them, and I was like, for them, just go. And I made it through the balance obstacle, which I suck
awesome.
at. And then I got to an obstacle I'd never done, and I fell in the water right before the wall. And I came out of it, and I was so bummed because I was like, man, I know I can get that wall. I had already done a 16-foot wall. That 14 was nothing to me, right? And so I came out of the water, and I was just like, oh, and they're in your face. What do you think
right
of this?
After.
What do you think? Yeah. And I was just like, oh, it was really fun. Like, I didn't know what else to say because I was like, I'm soaking wet. My mind is just a million miles an hour. I'm also bummed I didn't touch what I wanted to touch because I knew I would be at the top of it. And I was just like, there was so much there, right? And so then I walked off, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but all day I held first place. All day. Until the very end of the day. There was a couple people that beat me. But I held first place all day. And everybody was like, oh, taking pictures and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I felt like I was in a whirlwind. I didn't know what was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was just here to have fun. That's the only reason I'm here. But then when they interviewed me after, he asked, like, what is the obstacle course to you? And then the real Christi came out. I'm like, you can ask me that and I can answer it. So I just told him, I was like, man, the only reason I got into ninja is it's daily life for me, right? You got things smacking you in the back of the head. You got things tripping you up. You got stuff you fall. Every time, how do you get back up?
Hell yeah.
And so
Yeah.
That's the only way. That was what ninja became to me. It was like, it was the daily struggle of slipping off of something, hitting your head, dropping to the ground, and then get back up and you do it again.
Always getting
every
back
time.
up.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. And then 2012, season 12. I don't know where I'm at.
The end of season 12.
So season 12 was 2020. That was a fun year. We had masks. We had all sorts of stuff. We were in a lockdown set in St. Louis. There was only 150 of us chosen. It was super fun to be there. I was grateful to be called. I had collapsed on a run. You don't know this, actually. I had collapsed on a run, and they found out my heart was failing. Yeah. So
why not add another wrench to the
right?
piece?
So I wasn't supposed to be able to even compete in 2020.
Because of the condition.
Because of whatever happened. They called it ventricular tachycardia, and at any point, you could keel over and die.
This was something you've never experienced in your entire life?
Nope.
Have you since?
No. Yes and no. I'll explain in a second.
Yeah, okay.
So I collapsed on a run. Everything just went black. And
you fell over.
I didn't pass out. I dropped to the ground. I was able to catch myself with my knees, and then it all came back.
Okay.
So it literally...
You'd never had that experience in your life up until then?
Nope. And so it was scary.
Yeah.
I texted a doctor friend, and I was like, hey, so this happened? And she was like, you need to come in. Let's start testing stuff. They did a heart procedure. I almost died in the heart procedure. That was fun. I sat there telling him, I was like, you're killing me. He was like, no, I'm not. The doctors will tell me what's going on. And then the girl yells out 70/20 and dropping. And he's like, keep talking to us.
I am killing you.
This lady's like tapping my face. This one's putting a cloth on my head. And I was like, I'm getting cold. Tell my kids I love them if I die. Like, I didn't, but I was so calm. That was the first time I faced death. Like, in a real way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that woke me up. So the peace I felt right there on that table is something I would never be able to explain to you, but I've seen it in other people that are almost at death. It's kind of weird, but again, my deepness. But people are always scared to die, right? You're always scared of death. You're always scared, like, in the end, what happens, right? So in the biblical point of view, you get to go to heaven, but what if there's not a heaven? What if there's whatever?
The unknown creeps in.
Right.
And scares us.
And the fear.
Yeah.
So being that moment, I was probably the calmest and chillest I've ever been in my life.
Your entire life.
Yeah. And they're pumping adrenaline into me. He's got a catheter up my leg to my heart. And I was just laying there, like, literally dying, telling him I was dying and having a conversation with the doctor. Huh. As he's slowly, like, pulling this thing back out my leg, like, oh my gosh. But it woke me up. So I was sent to Mayo. Mayo cleared me. They said it was a supraventricular tachycardia. which is like if people drink energy drinks, which I did not, for some reason it was just a freak episode is what they had put it off as. So I was cleared from Mayo. I emailed one of the producers and was like, hey, just so you know, I am actually allowed to run in case it happens, because we were already in COVID at that point. It's like fat chance.
Yeah.
But in case it happens. So I wasn't even supposed to run, and then I was able to run.
Hell yeah.
But then after that run, I ended up with an appendectomy, and then my health just like totally went downhill. So I was gone for 2 years because of that. I got tested for every kind of cancer. My heart was failing.
And
like,
what was it? And what was wrong?
So they didn't figure out the whole thing except for they think it was the house I was living in.
Huh.
I was renting an older house.
And just stuff inside the house
Yep,
was making you sick?
Radon, yeah. Which is very much why my public health side's like, people need to live in better homes. But as a single parent, I was like, hey, it was a cheap house.
That's what you could afford.
Yeah. Yeah. So
eye-opening. Whoa.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was pretty crazy. My kidneys were failing. Like literally not even a year ago, I had a pulmonary embolism and my kidneys were failing. And they were looking at the next options. I should not be here today.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
So I took 2 good years out of the gym, which made me cry.
Yeah. Well, we're there every day. That's where we met. That's where I saw you.
Well, that's where I'm at now.
Why is she jumping up and doing handstand pull-ups? And why is she touching? And now I understand it all.
Yeah. So they stopped me from the gym for 2 years. So there was a gap that I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And people were always like, where are you? What happened? Did you just fall off the face of the earth? No,
and now how do you want to explain that? Because you're a deep person, so you're ready to tell them what really fucking happened. Because you're not going to go, well, I just wasn't here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's tough in itself.
Yeah. It's like, it's a long story.
Yeah.
It's a long story. But I learned a lot. Like, when you look back at it, there was days that I woke up one night and my heart was going crazy. And it was like a heart attack. And my phone's not sitting there, it's on the floor. I was going to say, I have a letter in my phone to each one of my kids.
Oh, wow.
But it was January of 21. I ended up going into another heart procedure. But I woke up in the middle of the night and my heart was beating out of my chest. And like, I've spent my life raising these kids. Like, they're the one thing that I have, right? And so when you come to the realization that like, you may not be here anymore. And then what do? You know?
Yeah.
So...
as a dad, yeah. Thought about that. I love him to death.
Yeah. So my son had been sleeping by my feet because I was sleeping on the couch. For some reason, I didn't feel well that night, and I'd been sleeping on the couch, and he came and was sleeping on my feet at the end of the couch, the prop your feet up kind of couch. And I was like kicking him because I couldn't get up. My heart was just like, I don't even know how to explain it, literally just fluttering. And you could feel like somebody was taking a knife and twisting it in your chest. And it goes all the way through to your back, which is the sign of a heart attack, right? Which I didn't know at the time. I just knew you have to find me aspirin. You have to find me something. Like,
oh, wow.
Please, whatever it is, just find me something. I'm not going to, like, this is not okay. And so I'm, like, kicking him. I'm like, Mikey, I got to go. You got to get me something. Like, go into this cabinet. So then as a kid, they're like, where is it? You know? So you're, like, trying to lay there calmly, like, not freaking out your child, but like, I have to have something, find me aspirin. He brought me aspirin and I took some and I laid there and I texted a couple different people because everybody's like, well, go to the ER, go to this, go to that. I don't leave my kids. And at that point I was just like, I can't leave, you know? So as morbid as this sounds, I texted a couple people and I was like, if I'm not awake in the morning, just call and check on the kids. Make sure they're okay and send somebody down to get them. My family's not here, you know? I had nobody.
Yeah.
And so they're like, no, you need to go to the ER, you need to go to the ER. And I was like, I can't. I knew I would be okay, but then part of me was like, just in case, that's pretty messed up. Like, you can't leave them here, you know? So, internal conflict. Either way, I laid there and did not get up. And I did not call 911. For anybody out there listening, call
911, please.
Please do. So I laid there and I wrote each of them a letter in my phone. And I was like, pretty much told them how amazing of humans they are. They've lived through hell, and they deserve so much better.
Hell yeah.
Always fight for it. And I'm like, just because, like, if I'm gone, it's not because I gave up on you. It was just my time to go.
Hell
like,
yeah.
Man, and until you're in that place in life, realizing that, like, you have no control over anything. You can literally only do what you can do. It's definitely a wake-up call.
Heck yeah.
So, anyways, I learned a lot over the last couple of years. I learned you don't have control over anything. Crap happens, and it doesn't mean you did anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's life. And, like, whatever you give out to people will always come back to you, right?
I love that.
So, man, if you just, life, you only have one. Like, live it and just hope for good and fight for good, and it'll always work out.
Fuck yeah.
But, yeah, it shook me. And then to be back in the gym, the first couple weeks was just like, I don't belong here. This isn't my place anymore. It was just that internal, like, you're not good enough, you know? And it's heavy because, like, I knew people in my gym knew me from before. And, like, well, why can't she do 30 pull-ups anymore? Why is she only doing 2? Why can't she, you know, bench so much? Why, you know, and nobody ever asked me. Nobody ever judged me. It was all up here. So once you get out of here,
hell yeah,
you're solid.
Hell yeah.
And that's what I had to do. But, man, those first couple weeks and months, I was just like, dude, you're fucking weak. And I don't recommend talking to yourself like that. But that's what I did. It was just like, you can't. And you have to, hey, you know what? I'm doing what I can do.
Absolutely.
And your voice to yourself is probably the best thing and the biggest thing that'll push you through life.
Absolutely.
So even if, like, sometimes I'm like, you can't, but then, like, my inner's like, all right, fight for it.
Hell
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Hell yeah.
So there's sometimes that I'm like, yeah, talk crap to me because you're just pushing me a little bit further, you know? But be your inner voice, be your
Love
inner
yourself.
strength. Yeah. But that's what came of it is, like, I built the outside to be what the inside needed to be. And because the outside became a safe space, a protected space, then my inside could catch up to where the outside was.
Perfect. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. And it has been quite the journey. Hell yeah. I appreciate your strength in coming on here and sharing these things. I was very apprehensive and nervous because these are things that are tough to talk about. But I definitely know that people will benefit from hearing your story. Before you get out of here, though, we got to lighten it up a little bit. So I have a segment called The Firing Range. It's just this or that questions, whichever one speaks to you.
Okay.
Simple stuff, apple or an orange, stuff like that. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Oh, man.
It is
my
easy.
slow
Trust
decision-making?
me. You do have to make rapid-fire decisions. So I ask that we speed it up.
This will be interesting.
For all of you listening, please check out the amazing podcast sponsors, Mattress by Appointment, Cool Fit, Brennan and Brennan Family Dental. If you heard about them here, make sure to let them know they support the podcast. Without further ado, Christi, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you going to walk places or are you running?
Running.
Fruit or veggies? Come on, that
Sorry,
one was not supposed to be your hold up. Hike or are you bicycling?
Ooh, hike.
Are you a leader or a follower?
Leader.
Nonfiction or fiction?
Nonfiction.
Campfire or a fireplace?
Campfire.
Casual or formal?
Casual.
Lone wolf or a social butterfly?
Lone wolf.
Drive or fly?
Ooh, drive.
And your
more.
your last one for today, are you taking a city skyline or that back home mountain range?
Oh, man, I miss home.
I can
I'll
imagine.
take the mountain range.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for your time today, and I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I'm here.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.